got a big battle in front of us, baby. And it's just starting. So let's get funky like a monkey. For 15 years, the American dream has done it with you. Don't fail me now. No, don't fail me now.
Hot off the press.
Let's start with AEW. Let's start with the ending.
Okay.
Because it's probably the biggest news. You had Kenny Omega going up against Rey Fenix.
That's not the big news, folks.
It's not the big news, but I mean, it was for me a really good match, really fun match. You know, obviously Rey Fenix is out of his mind. He's completely out of his mind. He's completely lost his mind. He's one of the craziest dudes in the business, man. Oh my God. But yeah, the big news is what happens after Kenny gets this big victory. And he's, I guess, gonna give Phoenix a little extra. And the Death Triangle can't come out because they're occupied with Eddie Kingston and his people. So, John Moxley comes out to give Kenny a little receipt for hitting him with the microphone. He comes out with his barbed wire bat. Right? It was a bat, right? Yeah.
A barbed wire bat. Oh,
and yeah, so who comes out? And I knew it was gonna happen. So I was laying on my bed, nice and calm, and then I see that there's 7 minutes left on the show, and the match is over, and I'm like, oh, okay,
they're going home early, folks.
I don't know what's going on, but something's going on. So let me get up and get close. So the Good Brothers show up, and they looked awesome. They look so cool.
Courtesy of Impact Wrestling, boys and girls.
Courtesy of Impact Wrestling. Never forget. Yeah, they come out and they look great and they kick ass. So finally we get someone that's not Don Callis. We get a wrestler too showing up on AEW. So you know what I'm saying? A little payback. Then who oh yeah, while they're jumping Mox and beating the hell out of Mox, the Young Bucks come out to kind of try to calm them down. Like, yo, what the hell are you doing, Kenny? So yeah, and anyway, a bunch of people interfere. Everyone gets beaten up. Then finally, the last image you're gonna see Kenny throw up the 2 Sweet in the middle of the ring. Of course, the Good Brothers join, and they look at the Bucks like, pick a side. Now, obviously, this was out of nowhere, right? They caught the Bucks off guard, you could say. I'm talking about in storyline. Obviously, it's been planned for months, but in storyline, they catch the Bucks off guard. So this may not be official, but the Bucks do join them in a little 2 Sweet in the middle of the ring. You get all 5 hands. So it looks like Bullet Club, they probably can't use that name, but Bullet Club is back together, at least those 5. Yeah. I'm sure that broke the internet.
Well, I'm sure. I mean, goodness gracious. There's a lot to unpack there. Yeah, I see it. Directly from Hot Topic. Very nice there, Vic. Very nice.
Courtesy of Hot Topic.
Courtesy of Hot Topic. Listen, the match in and of itself was exactly what a Kenny Omega match is. I mean, when I saw the announcement for this match several weeks back, I knew that what I was in for was basically Kenny Omega versus Laredo Kid Part 2, even though because Phoenix and Laredo Kid are kind of work a similar style, and I knew that was the kind of match that I was going to get. It's a lot of the high spot, kick out of everything type of thing. It's they do tell their stories. I'm not saying that they don't. Omega looked good physically. He cut up. He's looking good. I think it's a matter for me that I just have to kind of go with the understanding that to a particular audience, Kenny Omega is a main event guy. He just doesn't do it for me. He just doesn't. It's just something that I gotta accept that. It's kind of the same way, with like Orange Cassidy and other guys there. I just have to understand that, they're not my brand of whiskey. They're just not for me. And, I just have to kind of accept them and deal with them as they are. The match for what it was good. The afterbirth and everything, I thought that Moxley coming out with the baseball bat was just ridiculous. It's like, come on, John. It's always that ode, it's always that ode to the, indie garbage death match. Just stop doing it. Just stop. You don't need that. The Good Brothers coming out, yeah, that was cool. The fact that the Young Bucks are going out and they're trying to break it up, I'm like, dude, listen. If they're the heels and the Young Bucks are supposed to be purported baby faces, this is where the confusion comes into, where I'm like, listen, at that point, what has to happen is it's either the Young Bucks say, yeah, we're joining the party, or the three heels whoop their ass. That's just it. It's not meant to be this layered and nuanced, and the Bucks, it's kind of a continuation of what we've been seeing with the Young Bucks for the last 6 months of are they, aren't they, are they heels, are they baby faces, and always straddling this really thin fence around Omega. Guys, that's it. We're pretty pregnant at this point. Make up your minds. Give us the delineation already. It's not a story that seems compelling, where you see this layered. It's like the Good Brothers were awesome. That was cool. You leave it at that. When the Young Bucks come in, it's either you're coming to clean house or you're getting your asses kicked. No in between. And having them go out there and trying to be peacemakers and then tentatively doing the too sweet things, like, no. Just no.
Well, I think it's more realistic for them, even though their friend is a dick, it's still their friend. Everyone knows that they're friends with the Good Brothers. Everyone knows they're friends with Kenny Omega. And
correct. But here's the thing. In that moment, you gotta understand if Don Callis being the mouthpiece for Omega and essentially having the relationship with the Good Brothers because they're all in Impact, if this is a plan that they're formulating, then if Don Callis has essentially come out and said in so many words that he and Kenny Omega basically made fools of all the people who are in charge of AEW, that also includes the Young Bucks by proxy. This should not be a situation where the Young Bucks are still trying to be friendly with this guy, because this has already been something that should have had enough tension to it to where the Bucks are like, what the hell's going on? And that's when Kenny says, that's it. He six Gallows and Anderson on him. Down they go.
Yeah,
down they go.
There's never been Kenny's never done anything wrong to the Young Bucks.
But the tension has been there in terms of Omega, essentially challenging the Bucks, to be like, hey, are you with me or against me? And if they're still trying to stop him from doing things that they perceive to be wrong instead of actually joining him, at some point, if you're the heel, you've had enough. Even if they are your friends, you lay them out.
Yeah, I think when it's time for that, I think we will see that. We'll probably see it as soon as next week. If the Bucks come out, they're gonna team with Kenny, I imagine. It said the Elite are gonna be in action next week. It didn't say who. I imagine it'll be Kenny and the Young Bucks against another 3 people. I don't know who. We'll get to see something. Something's gonna happen there. So let's see what happens. I do want definitively for Bucks to pick a side. But like I said, Kenny has done nothing wrong to the Young Bucks. Even though he's a heel, he's done nothing wrong to them. And the Bucks have done nothing wrong to Kenny. Even when they had their matches against each other, when it was Hangman and Kenny never really, it was more sportsmanship, you know, it's like it's all good. We're still friends. I do want I don't know what the choice is. I don't know if it's them together or them apart. I don't know what's the better story or which way they're going. But if it is them apart, then I do want to see it. I want to see Kenny lose his mind, like stop trying to stop me, get pissed off, and jump him just like you said. So I do want to see that. If that's the route they're going, if they're gonna stay together, then they'll just stay together. That's fine too. Whichever, you know, I just want to see it play out. Um, some quick things that happened on Dynamite. Of course, you had Wardlow beat Jake Hager. Solid. It was an okay match, but I thought it was laid out nicely. It's something about Hager though. His performances always mess with me. It's like he's not sure of himself, and it just doesn't look for me the way it should look when he's in the ring. I don't know what it is. I don't know why it is, but he seems uncomfortable. I don't know. It's never like just a good match. It's never just a clean, smooth match. Even when if it's set up correctly, even if the story's correct, it's always something in his performance.
Well, you got to look at it. I think that Hager, his two best performances at AEW was actually his debut match against Dustin Rhodes. That was very good. Mm-hmm. And the match that he had against Moxley, but this was probably about a year ago at this point, you know, maybe close to a year ago. And outside of that, I agree with you. Most of his performances, they seem flat. This match was designed by, you know, to work the big man style. You look at Wardlow. Wardlow is very impressive. He looks like $1 million. You can easily see when he's working in the ring is that he's a guy that has a ton of potential, but he's still very green. And a guy that, you know, he's getting better every single time, but this match he needed to, you know, a little bit of hand holding in terms of, and not in terms of any of the athletic stuff. It's more in the, you know, X's and O's, like we're getting from point A to point B, point C, blah, 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 throughout the course of the match. You know, obviously they both work the big man style. They each do their, you know, their cool power spots. The fact that Hager got beat flat with Wardlow's finish, I'm not sure how that's supposed to go. The match felt flat the way that the Wardlow beat him, because he beat him just flat finish, just beat him. And then the fact that Hager gave him a fist bump, it would have made more sense had Hager just walked away and would have been hot about it. And it would have made more sense when later on when MJF went to give him a pep talk. And it almost seems like MJF is doing exactly what I was thinking that he was going to do, but he's doing it almost as a baby face and not a heel. Meaning that he's basically winning over individually all the members of the inner circle, but he's doing it as a baby face. Mm-hmm. When he, you know, a couple of weeks ago when he did the MJF had the interaction with Santana and Ortiz, you know, that to me felt like a private moment that should not have been on television, just because of the content of what they were talking about. You know, I just felt that was a private moment that didn't need to be on TV, but it made sense to win over Santana and Ortiz. Then tonight he gives Jake Hager the pep talk, and it seemed like, and then he's winning Hager over. So it's like little by little he's doing this. It's just a matter that he's doing it he seems like he's baby facing himself to become friendly with these guys. So that's the story for Hager moving forward, is the fact that now it seems like MJF won him over with the pep talk and seeming like, hey, he cares about him after he got beat by Wardlow. It just seems kind of weird because Wardlow's MJF's guy. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So that, you know, let's see how that plays out.
Yeah, you make a really, really good point, because last week, MJF wore Puerto Rico inspired gear.
Yes, he did.
So it's a bunch of little ass kissing, whatever. But MJF's a smart dude. It comes off very sincere. And this is one thing I do really, really love about wrestling. And this is not the first time I've seen it. You can take a real situation and you can perform as yourself, right? You don't have to be in character. MJF, when he was speaking to Santana about his loss, he could be the real MJF. He didn't have to be the character. He can speak from the heart. Even though the character does not mean well. The character is going to turn on him and use that against him. He's just doing it to get what he wants. But the real MJF meant it. So it was a real moment, but you can use it. You know what I'm saying?
That's the reason why I'm saying that
It's
when I
beautiful.
saw it,
Beautiful.
when I no, it was well done, but you know that when I saw it, I was like, my only criticism would be is that this felt like a private moment between two people that should not have been on camera.
Yeah. No, I know.
That's all it was.
But I'm look, it's wrestling. We've seen it a billion times. Something bad happens in real life, and you put it on television and you use it as fuel.
I guess.
That instantly reminded me when I saw MJF do that. It instantly reminded me. I don't know if you've seen this match, but there was a match. There was a blow off on TNA. I don't know how many years ago. It was EC3 and Rockstar Spud, and this kind of catapulted EC3 into his heel persona. And when people say, "Oh well, EC3 doesn't really have good matches," this is the match that made me believe that EC3 can have good matches with really good stories. And it's the hair versus hair match, and they had a good match. And after the match, EC3 wins. After the match, the real EC3 puts Rockstar Spud over. But this is the real EC3 talking, and you can tell that it's the real EC3, and everything comes out so sincere, right? And it's like, oh, that's great. And he gives Rockstar Spud his flowers. In case people didn't know, Rockstar Spud is a stud performer who can do everything, and obviously his size hinders him, but he is so good, and he probably doesn't get enough credit. And EC3 took that opportunity to give his friend in real life some credit. But of course, the heel EC3, the character, right there, turns on him and goes like, basically, not like psych, I didn't mean it, and continues to beat him and get more heat and take the hair off him, and it just adds to it because he was able to use his real feelings. He really does think Rockstar Spud is great, but the character can use that and turn it against him, and I love seeing that because it's like it's the perfect way to make it real because it is real. That part of it is real, so it just makes these stories better. Another interesting thing that happened or whatever, or Frankie Kazarian basically stated something very interesting. And he says, "You don't like this? I think it's great. It's basically the Ric Flair gimmick, where it's a little bit different. The stakes are not as high because
I'll explain why I'm not a big fan. That's part of it. But that was a decade ago, so we can get over that.
Oh well, everything in wrestling has been done 7,500 times already. So if you do something twice,
there's nothing original. Nothing original.
It's not that big a deal. But I like it. The stakes are not super high because no one's retiring. They're just saying if they lose a match or the next time they lose a match, at least the combination of Frankie and Christopher Daniels will break up, which I'm fine with because they've been together. Sheesh. I don't know.
Forever. They've been together for a long time.
It feels like more than 10 years.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
It feels that way. I could be wrong, but it feels that way.
No,
Because when they left Impact, they were together in Impact for a couple of years.
If you count TNA, Ring of Honor, and now AEW, it's
been a nice run. They did their thing. Obviously, you can tell just by the amount of times you see Christopher Daniels wrestle on television, it's not much anymore. And I think he's the head of talent relations. So he's clearly going to take a lesser role after this last run. Whenever it's over, it's over. But basically, when they lose, it's over for them as a team. So I thought that was interesting.
Yes, it is interesting. I think that the issue that I take on with it's just a matter that the stakes are very high, for people who are longtime fans and have followed Kaz and Daniels as a team. You know, you might feel something. The issue is that over the entire tenure that they've had in AEW, we have not been conditioned as the audience to care about SCU as a team, because it's usually always been Scorpio Sky and Frankie Kazarian. Christopher Daniels has been playing the role of the manager, you know, or the second for the majority of those matches. Yes, he does wrestle, and you know, I'm not saying that he doesn't, but the thing that gets me is that eventually the last match they're going to have is they're going to lose to the Young Bucks, and that's the end. Whenever SCU, Kaz and Daniels wrestle against the Young Bucks for the AEW tag titles, that's it. That's the end. So that let's not have any ambiguity. That's the end. They're not beating the Young Bucks. The thing that ends up happening is that once that happens, the question becomes, then what? Let's just say, would we care? And I ask this sincerely because I like Kaz and Daniels a lot. They're both very talented guys. But would you care about potentially Frankie turning heel on Daniels or the other way around? Would you care to see them wrestle against each other? Probably not. So it seems like a stake has been created, right? You know, there are stakes involved now every time we see SCU wrestle, because you're trying to condition the fans to be like, is this the last one? But at the end, with all due respect, I don't know if the ultimate payoff is going to matter. That's the reason why I'm saying I'm not in love with it.
Okay, I totally get that. But I guess we don't know the full story. We don't know the behind the scenes story. If Christopher Daniels is planning on wrestling 10 dates a year, 10 to 20 dates a year, and Frankie wants to wrestle every week, it's not going to work anymore.
Of course not. Of course
and if
not.
Daniels is starting to get towards the end, and he's one of the older guys on the roster. He's probably one of the top 3 older guys.
Well, if Christopher Daniels is under the age of 50, I'd be very surprised. And he looks fantastic, though.
No, he looks it's funny. I think Jericho's body doesn't look great, but Jericho himself looks great. Like his face, his hair, his gear. But his body, he's not in his prime with his physique. But no. Dustin looks better than ever, in my opinion.
Yes, he does.
And Daniels is pretty close to the way he's always looked. It's crazy. So yeah, these are the older guys, but they still very close to their prime, at least, you know, in my mind. But we don't know how they feel.
After what could be 30 years of beating up on the body, you know.
Yeah, we don't know what they're feeling.
Yeah.
I think Daniels wants to take a step back, and if he does, you know, it's hard to get TV time on Dynamite. If this is his last full-time run right now, these next 3 months, and he wants to go out with a nice little story, I think it's a nice way to go out. It's a nice way to send them off with a nice story. You know, if I don't know, I don't think he's planning on retiring or anything like that, but if he's gonna slow down and go away for a while, it's a nice little story to get him out the door and almost not forget, because I hate that. I hate when someone has contributed so much to the wrestling business and they just go away, no story, no last match, no announcement, no nothing, no. I know you can't do that with
that's a lot of guys. That's a lot of guys and girls, you know, that
yeah.
do.
I mean, you can't do it with everyone, but if you do respect someone a lot, I think you should at least make an effort. You know, I don't want a Mark Henry situation. Anyway, we'll get into the legends.
We'll get to that later.
We'll get into the way legends are treated later. Yeah. So those were the most notable things on Dynamite for me. What was most notable on NXT?
I mean, obviously, you know, the main event with Finn Balor defending against Kyle O'Reilly. Um, I thought it was again with those two guys. It's always going to be a tour de force in terms of athletic ability and good wrestling storytelling. Um, I enjoyed the match, but I didn't enjoy it. I did not enjoy it as much as the first one. And I think one of the reasons why I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one is because they essentially called back the things that happened in their first match that were accidents, but they, you know, like the liver shot to O'Reilly, which was an accident, the broken jaw to Balor, which was an accident, and they weaved it into this match in story. And the thing about it is like, okay, I understand that when you call it back, but you didn't need to call it back the very first match. Tell me a different story. You know, those are elements that you can use. If Balor wants to say, "Hey, I'll break your jaw," that's fine. But I don't think that wasn't the story of the match. You know, Balor was taking control. It was probably in the middle of the match where O'Reilly. I don't know why O'Reilly had his mouth on the rope, and then Balor kicks it, and then all of a sudden, you know, Kyle O'Reilly selling his jaw, you know, for the rest of the match, like, you know, and he oversold it, which I thought that was the thing that kind of took me away from it. Is like he oversold it, and we knew that he's clearly not hurt. You know, by the way he's selling, you know, he clearly was not hurt. Um, they tell great, you know, great stories, great chain wrestling when. You know, when O'Reilly's making his comeback, he was able to get Balor down, got his working on his arm through the whole match. And, you know, he hits the arm bar. He's just about ready to get there. And I have to admit, seeing O'Reilly tap out, no bueno. No bueno. I didn't like it. There are times where you have to, it feels weird to me because I know that I really wanted to see O'Reilly win the title because I'd figure that the steam that was built on the equity of the first match, which I knew O'Reilly would lose, but I went into it knowing, okay, O'Reilly's going to lose this match, but it was based on his performance that if he could hang in there and look like a superstar as a single, then his projection is much better. And then over the last 3 months, knowing that Balor was hurt for real and he was out, and O'Reilly was being featured very heavily, and O'Reilly was beating everybody, looking very good against everybody. And then when he beat Pete Dunne and Damian Priest to then advance to this match against Balor, you'd figure like, all right, I would be okay with pulling the trigger on O'Reilly and putting the belt on him, even if it's in a short-term situation, if for nothing else, to establish him as the champion and give him a I don't want to say the push. I think it's more like an uplift to the next level. And then what you do with Balor is that he has to get even darker into his character, because I think that what's happening is with Balor is that Balor is almost like he's almost like he's trying to act like a villain, but I think that at the core he's a baby face. And I think that with a guy like Balor, you got to give him a real reason to really go all the way dark. And the way to do it would be is he gets in the ring against O'Reilly, defends the title, and he's you know, he thinks he's a badass. And he thinks he's all the way there, but he realizes, no, I'm not. And then he has to go to a much, much darker place and really turn full-fledged heel. I'm not talking about Demon Balor. I'm talking about Finn Balor, the Prince, really going all the way heel, all the way there, and not just in promo and when you see his matches, he still wrestles like a babyface with an edge. I'm talking like a full-fledged heel. And I think that it would have hurt Balor less to lose the title tonight than to beat O'Reilly and have O'Reilly submit. because at least to me, it feels like some of the steam was taken off of O'Reilly. And I'm like, that can be calculated as a missed opportunity, because you only have so many opportunities to elevate stars from one position to another. And when you get that opportunity, sometimes it may not be what you had written down on your notepad initially, but sometimes you have to pull the trigger, even if it's in a short term, because it's meant to ultimately, you're going to go back to these two guys. And then as you start telling the matches later on, and maybe with O'Reilly as the champion and Balor as the challenger, then you can call back the things from the first match, and then you could start calling them back little by little. But, again, excellent match technically, but there was just something about it that didn't hit me the same way as the first one. And the ending just was like, no. It was like, no.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a momentum thing. I feel like a couple months back, we were definitely talking about O'Reilly as champion, or O'Reilly versus Cole. There were a lot of potential exciting things for him, and then nothing happened. So now it's like, it's not the same heat behind the match.
Correct. And ultimately, the one thing that I always say is, and you've heard me say this like 1,000 times, it's not a matter of if you win or lose, it's how you win or lose. And a loss like this can really hurt O'Reilly, because at the end of the day, Balor being the champion, it's like, listen, there's no shame losing to the champion. But at the same time, if you're a guy like Kyle O'Reilly, who's he gonna beat that's going to reestablish his momentum? Who can he beat that he hasn't beaten already? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's, the only there you start losing, and if it means that, hey, we're going to keep O'Reilly as a potential guy, but now we're going to have him work against Thatcher, Ciampa, Karrion Kross, but if that's the idea, then I'm like, okay, fine, but find another way to have him lose tonight, not the way he did. Submission, I'm not okay with that.
There's definitely a disconnect with, I guess Triple H or whoever is making these decisions in NXT. You are presenting people as specialists. Thatcher is a submission specialist, and you also pretty much show me, you're telling me that O'Reilly is like an MMA style, hybrid striker, submission
Brazilian
guy.
Jiu-Jitsu, or as Wade Barrett, BJJ.
Yeah, these guys are submission experts, but their matches are not. Their matches show it when they win, but they shouldn't. O'Reilly should not lose to Finn Balor by submission, and it's okay if he loses to Finn Balor's finish. What's the problem? Like, why can't he just take a coup de grace and lose? Like,
listen, he lost like that in the first match, which is fine. He could have lost again like that tonight. Well, what needed to happen is that O'Reilly makes a mistake.
Yeah,
that's really what I'm looking for. O'Reilly makes a critical error, and he realizes it. Now, if I watch the match back again and say, like, all right, let me nitpick this match, I could probably be able to find, like, all right, this is where they're getting to the submission, but I'm not a big fan of him losing that way. It's just, there's 100 other ways to have him lose. I don't think that having him being submitted by Balor, knowing that Balor, although he's a fantastic wrestler and he does the chain wrestling and can do submissions and does all that stuff, he's never been presented as a submission specialist. And that's the reason why I'm like, this doesn't make sense to have O'Reilly lose that way.
Yeah, he's presented as more of a technical guy, like technical in the sense like Bret Hart is technical. Like, you get what I'm saying? The guys that can do everything from the wrestling world,
Correct.
like, but the specific, technique of, submission fighting, that's O'Reilly's thing, and unless he's losing the Thatcher by submission, and you're going to tell me one of them is better than the other, and you're going to make the decision that Thatcher is the better submission guy, then that's fine, because you've established that Thatcher, that's his thing. Even though he's lost to other people by submission,
Yeah,
And that's
let's not revisit that.
That's my whole issue. But
that gives me
like you
stomach
said,
pain
you put these two guys together, you're gonna get a good to great match consistently,
every time.
99 times out of 100. So, it is what it is. Did Cross look good?
I'm trying. It's so hard for me. If I wanted to go with my gut, the answer is no. Because when I look at Damian Priest versus Karrion Kross, I'm like, dude, this is a main event. Like any day of the week, any show, anywhere for any promotion, you put these two guys together, and you're like, main event match, right? Should blow the roof off, no matter what. I guess to me, I was a little disappointed because I felt that the match was a little too slow. It was it felt like the match it felt like it was a little bit too much plotting, particularly from Damian Priest. And listen, I understand that Karrion Kross's style is to wear you down to where he's going to, if you're I shouldn't say, but if you're like a smaller, high flying type wrestler, he's gonna break you down and slow you down. If you're a big man, a power wrestler, he's gonna hit you with body blows and use the MMA stuff that he does and grapple you and submit you down. Everything with Karrion Kross is about breaking the body down on his opponent, and he was able to do it with Damian Priest. It's a matter that when I watched the match, it seemed like the pace of the match was slower than I would have wanted. It's like they were about a half step slow. It's not something ridiculous. It's not like you're going from 80 to 20. That's not what this was. But if you're going from 80 to 65, 70, you may not feel it on the surface, but as time progresses, you're kind of like, it's like, you want the pace to speed up. The ending of the match, the sequence that they used when Damian Priest made his comeback was actually really cool, because Damian Priest was able to basically break Karrion Kross down to the point where Scarlett on the floor was freaking out, which you've never seen Scarlett freak out in any of Kross's matches. Even when he wrestled against Keithley for the NXT title, Scarlett was out there. She's out there. She's active in participating, but you never feel at any moment like Scarlett is worried that Kross is not going to win. In this particular case, especially when Damian Priest put Karrion Kross in the submission hold, which was weird because it looked really cool. The issue that I have with Karrion Kross is that he doesn't sell. I mean, it's one thing if he's put in a submission hold by Johnny Gargano, knowing that he's so small next to him, that I can understand that a guy like Karrion Kross may not sell it the same way. But when you look at Damian Priest is as big as he is, as strong as he is, when you just do the visual. And, when you've been wrestling for 20 minutes and he puts you in a submission hold and he's stretching you in your face, you got to at least scream, even if you're not screaming like crying screaming, but screaming looks just like this primal thing where you're trying to get out and you're like half hurt, half frustrated, kind of thing. He didn't quite portray that the way that I wanted to. So this match is a match that I want to see again. I want to see these guys wrestle again. I want to get it. I hate saying this because I like both guys very much, but I want to see a better match. This match was good. Do not get me wrong. It was not a bad match. It was not bad. But again, I think that it might be me in my own personal expectation, having such a high expectation for the match that I was ultimately setting myself up to be disappointed. And maybe for the first go around, You know, I've always been a believer that sometimes in the first go round you have to give the very best, because every single time that you wrestle each other subsequently after that, you know, it gets to a point where I'm like, all right, we've seen it, and you can give the best 5-star matches, but after we've seen it, you know, 10 or 12 times, we're like, all right, who cares? You know, it has nothing to do with the wrestlers or the story or anything. It's just a matter that we've seen it so much. So I liked the match, but I was a little disappointed with it. But it's a match that I want to see again, and I want to see them rematch. So that, if nothing else, that's the positive, is that I want to see them rematch, because this is something that I want to continue seeing, the two of them fighting against each other.
All right. And how about the Raquel Gonzalez and
Great.
Rhea Ripley?
Listen, these two women, holy mackerel! I mean, I have to admit, NXT's done a fantastic job building up Raquel Gonzalez. They've done a really good job. This match was everything that it was meant to be. It was, you know, last woman standing. It's a fight. It's a brawl. The reason why it worked so well is because nobody else before them was doing the stuff they were doing, meaning no weapons, no excessive fighting on the floor, no, you know, no stupid, you know, gimmick stuff. Like, they were, all the things that were on the show before this. And even though Karrion Kross and Damian Priest did fight on the floor a little bit, but the match stayed in the ring. You know, and when you talk about last woman standing, they fought all over the arena. Just fought all over the place. You know, they did the kendo stick spot, you know, destroyed the announce table spot. They go to the back, and they were, you know, in the catering section, they destroyed that table. You know, there's a spot where Dakota Kai interfered, and, you know, Rhea Ripley was able to, you know, to get the better of her. I didn't like the fact that she literally took Dakota Kai and threw her in a locker. Like, physically put her in a locker, closed the door, and Dakota Kai exit stage left. I was like, no. See, I would be okay if Dakota Kai is trying to use a chair or a weapon, and Rhea Ripley gets the better of her, and she reverses, she puts her through a table, she hits her with a chair, and she puts her out that way. Again, Dakota Kai is somebody who has been integral to Raquel Gonzalez's development on television, and that duo is a very powerful duo, and at no moment should Dakota Kai television persona be compromised to make either the baby face, no matter that it's Rhea Ripley. Because, you know, physically you could say, yeah, Rhea Ripley could do it. If that was Aaliyah, God bless her, I would be okay with that. But not Dakota Kai.
I think we know, based on television and movies, that the kid that gets put in the locker is the biggest wimp in the whole school. So
this is where I'm saying, and the thing is that for several months on NXT television, Dakota Kai has been presented very strongly and very nicely. When she beat Ember Moon, after Ember Moon had only been back for maybe 20 minutes, and then, you know, Dakota Kai actually beat Rhea Ripley. Yes, mind you, yes, there was a boatload of interference and all. Fine, whatever, but she beat her. You don't have Rhea Ripley do that. That's just a poor decision, in my opinion. Because when they all, you know, Rhea and Raquel ultimately keep fighting, they keep doing just really, really good stuff. I mean, I would encourage people to go watch this fight, because it's what it was. It was a fight. It was entertaining. The only thing that I don't like is when Raquel Gonzalez hit Rhea Ripley with her finish on, you know, over the stage, which is clearly gimmicked. for them to fall and to break. That's just the spot for everybody when they have these types of matches. You know, it's already
better to be safe than sorry.
correct, but yes, but at the same time, it's not original.
Well,
and
you know,
it's not. And it's used so often that it's kind of like, okay.
Well, it should definitely be like a like obviously what happens in NXT happens in NXT or the WWE bubble. In that WWE bubble, yeah, that spot should happen once a year, twice a year. Same thing in AEW, same thing in every show. If you're gonna do that spot, don't do it more than twice a year.
But what ends up happening is that for the fan, when you see it so much on all the shows, we're talking the combined shows, and when you see it happen so often,
watch everything.
But when you see it so often, it just, you know, it loses its flavor. But anyway, so Raquel hits Rhea with that big move, and she wins with it, meaning she, you know, Rhea Ripley doesn't get up afterwards. And I'm like, it's believable, but again, my concern is with Rhea Ripley is that Rhea Ripley has been losing, and because, like I said, it's not if you win or if you lose, it's how you win and how you lose. And Rhea Ripley over the last maybe 5 or 6 weeks has lost to Dakota Kai, she's lost to Toni Storm, and now she lost to Io Shirai, and now she's lost to Raquel Gonzalez.
Yes, she's lost 4 out of her last 9 matches, and it's like you said, it's not if you lose, it's how you lose. Unless you're being groomed to be the top female in the business, then losing this much is ridiculous.
And that's my point. My point is that this is a moment where I understand that Raquel Gonzalez is being pushed. Raquel Gonzalez is being featured, which is great. However, this is where Raquel Gonzalez needs Dakota Kai to assist in getting to that point. Even if Rhea Ripley ultimately thwarts Dakota Kai and lays her out as part of the finish, but then Raquel Gonzalez then is able to get her move on Rhea, you got to give Rhea more of an out. Again, Raquel Gonzalez, in just the mere fact that she would win the fall is already all that she needs. She's not looking weak because over the course of the match, she is hanging toe to toe with Rhea Ripley and in more than one occasion getting the better of her. She doesn't need to win that emphatically and that strongly. If it was anybody else, we can have a discussion, and you could probably sway me to go and say, yeah, Raquel should beat them, you know, pretty emphatically, not Rhea Ripley. Something about this, and this might be actually a very nice nuanced layer that WWE is doing, but we may not be appreciating it because of the fact that we want to see Rhea Ripley win all the time. But the fact is that there was a point where Rhea Ripley was kicking everybody's ass to the point where she was looking like a heel and not a babyface. And the way that you get sympathy on her is by having her lose. You're not going to kill Rhea Ripley because, in all honesty, when you take a look at Rhea, with all due respect to all the other women on the roster, name me anybody else who stands out as much as her. Nobody. And this is just on appearance alone. This has nothing to do with skill or talent. It's just about appearance. When Rhea Ripley steps into the room, you're looking at her. And that counts for volumes. At some point, what I want to see is a story has to be explained as to why Rhea's losing so much. And if you're going to show vulnerability in Rhea Ripley, the person on camera, you have to start showing it. Because during the commercial break after the match was over, they did the picture-in-picture, which again, I'm not a big fan of the picture-in-picture because there's certain things that have to be shown full screen.
Yeah, but if it's not picture-in-picture, it's just a commercial.
Well, yes, but what
That's
I'm
what
saying is
replaces the
that,
picture in picture.
but what I'm saying is that the way that WWE produces this, right? After the match is over and the referees and the trainers are helping Rhea Ripley up, Rhea Ripley she physically can't stand on her own. But as she's coming to, she's literally mouthing because she speaks so slowly that you can read her lips. She says, "I'm fine, get off me." And she sits down to trainers and he's like, "Get off me." She's doing like the whole Steve Austin WrestleMania 13 thing, minus the Stone Cold Stunner. But I like that whole thing. It's a matter that I think that with Rhea Ripley, if are we going to show vulnerability? I think that's a nice layer that maybe WWE is trying to do with Rhea Ripley, is that to show that, one, she's not invincible, she can be beat, and it's giving equity to all the other girls, because believe me, if Rhea Ripley would have beaten all those other girls, then it's the Rhea Ripley show. Who else? So having her lose is helping the other girls come up in theory. And then if you're showing a vulnerability or a nuance in her character, when it comes her time to build back, to build back up and start beating everybody again, then the audience has a little bit more. They're with her a little more as a sympathetic baby face. And it's difficult to get sympathy on Rhea because of her look, because she's so tall and so muscular and all this stuff. It doesn't compute the same way if she was, like the size of Candice LeRae, where she can easily get sympathy because of her size. Rhea Ripley, it's the other way around. You have to show vulnerability, and I think that that's maybe what they're trying to do. So if that's the case, and the story begins to talk about Rhea Ripley's, maybe vulnerability, and maybe trying to make her a little more sympathetic, so when it does come time for her to come up, the fans are with her more, I'm okay with that. It's just a matter that, having her lose as much as she has, notwithstanding the circumstances, it gets to a point where I'm like, I'd like to see her win a match every now and then. I don't want to see her lose as much. You take some of the steam off of her by doing that.
We got to move on, but really quick, I'm okay with her losing. I'm okay with her losing the way she did, but I'm not okay with her losing 3 times recently leading up to this match. She should have won all her matches leading up to this match. Raquel gets the win, and they're both up here still. And, that's fine. But now, Raquel still looks great. But to me, she looks better. Like, the win is special. If Rhea hasn't lost in months, but she just lost a couple of weeks ago. So it's like, is it that hard to beat her? Well, I don't think WWE is trying to show vulnerability. I think what they're trying to do is do 50-50 booking like they do with every character. I think they book matches knowing they don't have an out. They just do it to do it. It's like, okay, we should just do it, and they don't have a game plan to get out of it. Look, she should not be losing that much. Like, there's no excuse for it. The reason she was looking like a heel is because her promos and her interactions with other characters made her look like a heel, because she was being a dick. She was acting like a bully sometimes. Not all the time, but sometimes you'd be like, oh, she's being a little bit of a dick. She's intimidating enough. She looks like a heel, like her presence and her persona. But if she's similar to, she reminds me a little bit like Jon Moxley. She's like a little, like a hard individual. But Jon Moxley doesn't come off as a dick. To me, he comes off as a genuine person. He's a little crazy, but he's fiery. He's passionate. He doesn't lose ever. He didn't lose for a year, and he didn't lose any sympathy. He didn't lose anything. People probably don't like. Some people don't like his matches because of his style, but character-wise, he was able to keep his fans. He was able to come off as a babyface, in my opinion. and he didn't have to lose to show anything. Like, you know, he was able to get fans behind him because his promos made us get behind him. Like, whatever, the make the fans get behind him. And if her promos would have did the same, if she would have been written correctly, if the stories would have made sense, you don't have to beat her. Like, you know, you just don't. And this win right here for Raquel, which I think is great because she's stepped her game up, and her look and her presence, everything has stepped up. So now I can believe that Raquel's going to be a big star, and I can believe that she can beat Rhea and be because Rhea can get her back eventually. So it's going to be fine. So her beating her, you know, but Rhea ultimately beating her in the end as the babyface and getting that happy ending, it's all good. But the you know, before getting to that point, having Rhea lose to a bunch of people was unnecessary, you know. So anyway, let's talk about Raw real quick. Let me start off by saying,
let's talk about Raw.
I don't like being super duper negative, and I'm pretty easy to please. At least I think so. You know, maybe I'm wrong, but I think I'm pretty easy to please. I can get behind anything as long as it makes me smile or gets me excited or whatever. It doesn't have to be perfect in my mind. It just has to be fun or compelling, you know, or at least make sense. You know, or you know what I like too? When I feel you really thought really, really hard about what you're doing. Like, there was a lot of thinking behind what you've done, like whatever, right?
Whether it's a hit or miss, at least, you know.
Whether it's a hit or miss, I'm like, you know what? I can tell that they really thought about this. You know, maybe the execution wasn't there, but I get the idea, and I like the idea, whatever. But let me look. This
just go for it, man.
All right.
Raw is rotten. It's okay.
Raw is rotten, yes. But this doesn't have a lot to do with the performers. For the most part, WWE matches, the performers in the ring on a technical level and their execution, you know, their moves, you know, their punches, everything looks good most of the time. You know, that stuff never really bothers me. There are finishes that bother me. Some people, I'd rather see them more. Some people I'd rather see less. But it's to me, it's not really the wrestlers that are causing all these problems. Anyway, let me start off by saying that last week, the show Raw ended on a cliffhanger. Now, I'm 35 years old, and in my history, in my entire life of watching television, and I binge everything, you know, I should probably get a second job or something, make some extra money, do something with my life. But no, I stay home and I watch everything, a bunch of movies, a bunch of TV. I have never, ever seen a show or movie end on a cliffhanger, and then when the show returns for its next episode, act like the cliffhanger never happened. So Randy Orton may or may not have set Alexa Bliss on fire. That is how the show ending. To me, pretty compelling. You know, to me, I'm like, okay, did he or didn't he? I don't know. Not that I want to see people set on fire. I don't. But if you're gonna do it, or if you're gonna tease it, you got to do it. That's always my rule. If you're gonna show fire, you got to set somebody on fire.
Randy already did the Fire Marshal Bill spot to the Fiend the night before.
He already set
the no need to do it to Alexa Bliss.
I didn't think there's no reason to do it, and that's why. Why did you leave a cliffhanger? Why couldn't you just show it? He didn't set her on fire. He could have easily put the match down, get frustrated, and go, no, I'm not going to do it, and walk out. I'm not going to do it, walk out, and you could have showed it. No, instead, you pull a fucking bait and switch. You go cliffhanger. Everything goes dark. If it's going to go dark, for me, it's like, okay, bring in the CGI. Bring in the fake Alexa Bliss dummy. Alexa Bliss is getting lit on fire. Or it doesn't have to be that she was lit on fire. Whatever it was, something cool is about to happen. because you're going black. Everything goes dark. Okay, let's see what's gonna happen. This week's show starts with Hulk Hogan cutting a promo on a Hulk phone, a comedy bit, after someone may or may not have been set on fire. We start with a Hulk Hogan comedy bit. Then we go straight into a Miss TV, and New Day come out, and they're doing comedy as well.
Oh God.
Then we go. Does Orton?
No. You forgot about Teddy Long.
Oh yes.
Liz Morrison,
Teddy Long
tonight you're gonna wrestle against the Undertaker.
Which
no, Undertaker's retired. That's right. Here comes the New Day.
I didn't mind that part. That part did make me laugh because everybody always makes fun of Teddy for saying the Undertaker and for saying a tag team match. But why couldn't that happen in the middle of the show? Why did it have to happen? Why are you starting the show like this? The only way to start that show was to start with the ending of last week's show.
Yeah, you got to start. You got to begin at the end.
Begin at the end. That's the only way to start, or at least talk about it, or at least show the replay, or give me something. Tell us that you care. Michael Cole could start, and just so you know, or whoever was on commentary, just so you know, Alexa Bliss is okay. She is fine. She was not harmed during last week's taping. Do something. But nobody cared. Nobody cared until finally, I guess after the tag team match, people finally chased down Randy Orton. Did you do it? No, I didn't.
30 minutes.
30 minutes into the show. 30 minutes into the show.
Yeah.
That tells me that there was no plan. They didn't know whether to burn her or not. That's why they didn't close the deal. They were like, well, should we do it? No, we shouldn't do it. Oh, should we? We'll figure it out next week. And they probably didn't even have it figured out in the first 10 minutes. She didn't even show up on the show.
The entire purpose of anything in professional wrestling is all about the finish. Nothing else. It's all about the finish. If you don't have the finish planned out, whatever you're doing, don't do it.
Don't do it till you know where you're going.
So you know what the finish is.
Jesus.
You can fill in all the gaps in between, but you need to know what the finish is.
So that was part one of does anyone care? Does whatever. Then of course you have this whole Charlotte Flair story. I already talked about how I didn't like her being tag teamed with Asuka. Normally I would, but the thing is that they already did this and they already broke them up and they already had the blow off, and now you're rehashing something that already happened. I don't know how long ago, 6 months ago, or a little bit more than 6 months ago, 7 or 8 months ago, whatever. You already did this, but that's fine. You're going this route. Okay, that's fine. But now you have this match, Asuka and Charlotte against who was it?
Peyton Royce and Lacey Evans.
Peyton Royce and Lacey Evans, a makeshift team. Two people with no direction that are not a real team.
It's two makeshift teams.
Yes, two makeshift teams. But we know why. At least they're champions. They're forced to be together. Why are these two girls together? I don't know. Especially, we've talked about the iconic shit.
We've already spoken about this ad nauseum. There's no reason to rehash it.
It is what it is.
You want to hear my rant? Go to our older videos.
It is what it is. You've made the decision to go with Charlotte Asuka. Okay, fine. So we have a Legends Night going on. We have a Legends Night. Which legends do we have at our disposal? Oh, we have Ric Flair. Okay, what are we doing with Rick? I don't know. Okay, make something up. Clearly, they made something up. There's no way in hell they planned on turning Rick against Charlotte. If that's what's happening, it's he's either turned on Charlotte because he's in love with Lacey Evans, which makes no sense at all. Because Ric Flair's character has shown nothing but love to Charlotte, even when she was a nasty heel and she shitted on him early on in Charlotte's early on her run.
Yep, I remember.
So Ric Flair's character has not shown a bit of there's been no teasing of this, no clues, no Easter eggs. His character, this is not in old man Rick's character. One of the most beloved wrestlers in the world to this day. To this day.
Yes, he is.
So is the plan to turn him heel? I don't know. Because he turns on Charlotte, or he meant to. The way they played it off, they're trying to say, oh, maybe he meant to grab somebody else's leg and he accidentally grabbed Charlotte's leg. That's not the way it looked on television. It was nowhere near that.
Well, he can't tell the difference between Charlotte and Lacey?
Exactly. So is this the worst execution? No, I think they're trying to turn Rick against Charlotte. Okay, so Rick's the heel, Charlotte's the babyface? Okay, good luck. But then Charlotte cuts a promo on Rick, and instantly, what do they think? Do they think the fans are going to get behind Charlotte when she's shitting on Ric Flair? Do they really think this? Charlotte, who's already, like, she's 50-50 with the crowd. Even when she's a babyface, half the crowd hates her, and half the crowd loves her.
I've always been of the ilk that Charlotte Flair is, you know, she's a terrific heel and a lousy babyface. You know, she inherited all those things from her father too.
Absolutely, Ric Flair's only a babyface because he put in damn near 40 years of in-ring work to gain the respect.
50 years
of in-ring work to gain the respect of the fans, where they had no choice but to cheer him. Like
they're not gonna at this point. Ric Flair is not a heel any longer. He's a babyface.
There's almost nothing he can do.
No.
You'd have to set someone on fire.
Too late.
Not that
Too
that's
late, friend. That's already been done.
Not that setting someone on fire is a big deal, because clearly it is not. based on the way it's presented.
Hey, listen, pal. Ric Flair needs to find another gimmick. Orton's already got that one covered.
So Charlotte is so Ric Flair turns heel on Charlotte. Charlotte instantly turns heel on Rick. What am I supposed to feel here?
Nothing.
What kind of... There's no love in the writing of these stories. There's no thinking. No one cares. Anyway, yeah. So anyway, enough about the legends. Here's another issue I had with this show. Not just this show, but WWE in general. On SmackDown, Sasha Banks was pinned. She's a champion.
Did she get beat by Carmella?
Yes, but I know where you're going, and I'll explain myself in a second. Sasha Banks was pinned. Charlotte and Asuka lost. Who else? Was it Lashley?
Yes.
Lashley lost, and somebody else.
And yeah, his two cohorts. Benjamin and
yes.
Alexander.
And they're also the champs, right?
Correct.
So you've had in the last two shows, SmackDown and Raw, you've had 4 champions lose. Just like you've had Rhea Ripley lose a bunch of times. They don't care about wins and losses. They don't matter to them. They think it's not a big deal. I get using your champion, have them get pinned to set up a match. That should be rare. That should be very, very rare. If you're going to do that for every single feud, and then you have the philosophy that every match needs a feud, or like there needs to be 20 feuds going on at once. That's one philosophy they have, but they also have the philosophy that to set up championship matches within the feud, you need the challenger to pin the champion. So champions are just getting pinned all the time. You have people who lose more when they're champions than on their way to the championship. How does that make sense? So how are the champions and the championships supposed to mean anything if they just lose all the time? All the time.
Well, for the case of Bobby Lashley, I think that when he lost to Riddle this week, it was silly because they pulled the old Undertaker Brock Lesnar finish, and here's the problem with it. The problem is that it's a throwaway. When Brock Lesnar and the Undertaker did it, it it was so layered and nuanced for several reasons. One is because the Undertaker never tapped out, ever, that we'd seen on WWE TV. The fact that the referee didn't catch it, and then it led to the Undertaker winning the match, but that was the main event match that led to another main event match between Brock Lesnar and the Undertaker back in 2015. This was essentially a throwaway match to where Bobby Lashley, and WWE has done a really good job of booking Lashley over the last several months, meaning he's been winning far more than this is probably the first time I can remember Lashley losing in the last several months.
He's one of the most protected people in the business as we speak.
And here's the thing. I like Matt Riddle, and he needed a win in order to continue telling this story. I don't like the way that he won because it kind of makes it made Lashley look like a fool. Because he gets, Riddle taps out. Why would Lashley, and again, this is just basic logic in pro wrestling or in any combat sport. You do not let go of the hold, or you do not surrender. You do not stop defending yourself until the referee tells you to stop doing it. So when Riddle tapped, Lashley immediately let go. And I'm like, Bobby, how long have you been a professional wrestler? You know that the match is not over until the referee calls for the bell. So he could be tapping like a drum, Riddle can, all day long, until you hear the referee say, ring the bell, and you hear it, you holding on to that full Nelson. I understand the story, because the MVP's on the apron, and he's like, he tapped. Yes, he did. So what? And then he beats him with a roll-up. I'm sorry, Matt Riddle's a strong guy, but Bobby Lashley's a cheeseburger away from 300 pounds. You're going to tell me he's going to be able to hold him down for 3 seconds with a simple schoolboy roll-up? Matt Riddle should have at least hit him with like one of his knee strikes or something, startle him, get him down, and then get a quick one on him. Not like that. That was stupid. I get it. They need to be able to tell the story, because Matt Riddle can't lose all the time to Lashley, because then you take away all his equity. But it was a silly finish. It was just silly. When the Hurt Business, I don't even remember who Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander were wrestling. I don't even remember who they wrestled.
Neither do I.
But the story of that match is clearly that there's an issue between the two of them.
Lucha House Party.
Lucha House Party. All right, so they wrestled against Metalik and Lince Dorado. Okay. Well, here's the thing. The issue has not, and again, this has nothing to do with Lucha House Party. Lucha House Party is an afterthought in this picture. Because the picture is that Cedric Alexander is getting a little too big for his britches. And he's basically coming out and saying, hey, I'm the man here. Because when they finally panned the camera and MVP's looking at them and saying, you guys should be embarrassed. And Cedric Alexander looks up and he says, well, why don't you talk to Shelton? I keep winning every time I wrestle single. So he's basically just throwing shit all over Shelton Benjamin. Cedric Alexander is. So it's a matter of like, okay, this match is designed that they're the tag team champions and they're feuding with each other. And I'm like, you do understand the reason why the Hurt Business was put together was because Shelton Benjamin and Cedric Alexander, when they were in singles last year, prior to this unit being put together, they were floundering. Why create dissension among the group? Even though it's an Easter egg, because when they first started, when Cedric first came into the group, Shelton Benjamin was not exactly, he didn't exactly welcome him with open arms. He didn't trust him. So it's a little Easter egg, but who cares? These guys are over as a unit. There's no reason to put them in a story where they're going to fight against each other. Makes no sense. And they're the tag team champions in a very, very thin tag team roster in terms of teams that are over. It makes no sense to do this kind of booking. They should be a very dominant team where the other tag teams have to step up their game in order to catch up to them. So poor booking, just blah.
All right. Well, finally on this show, you had Keithley against Drew McIntyre, which was an okay match. There were some hiccups though. Keithley is not Keithley anymore. So these actions have consequences. So when you, like I told you earlier, you cut somebody's balls off. Good luck getting them to be the same. He might never be the same again. Yeah, obviously he'll probably figure it out. People usually do figure things out, but actions have consequences. You start talking about, this isn't good enough or that isn't good enough, and we're gonna make you do this, and you should do this instead of this, even though something was working for you before. Okay, now this person is not the same person. He's lost all his confidence. This guy has been making mistakes every match, going on 4 weeks straight. And in NXT, I didn't see him make any mistakes. In his wrestling, I'm not even talking about the way matches are put together. I'm not talking about facials. I'm not talking about character work or promos. Literally, just his execution of moves. He can't even do that anymore. That is insane. But anyway, the match was still solid. It was still good, but there were a lot of hiccups for Keithley. So it's sad to see. It's sad to see someone like fall like that. But either way, the big news, of course, is Goldberg comes out, and I don't know what was going on here. More bad writing. Drew McIntyre, the most humble dude in his presentation, the way his character is written, in real life, the most humble dude in the world. Goldberg calls him out for being disrespectful to legends and all this bullshit. And Goldberg is the guy who's gonna fight for the legends. Meanwhile, Randy Orton was literally disrespecting legends in front of everybody. Why didn't Goldberg go smack Randy Orton in the face? I'd probably rather see that. I think that would be a nice little story, because at least Goldberg could beat Randy, and now Goldberg has some momentum, and you can have a reason for Goldberg facing a champion. And then I think he's facing the wrong champion. So now you have this babyface dynamic. You're trying to tell me that Drew is the heel? That's what you're trying to tell me? That's the writing? That's what we come up with? Absolutely not. And then we're relying on these guys from the past, which I have no problem with. I'm one of the few people, I want to see Goldberg. I want to see him do better. I think a lot of the stuff that's happened in his matches that have gone bad, like the stuff with The Undertaker, what else? Oh, the stuff with The Fiend. Obviously, well, the Fiend stuff, apparently it is his fault, because he's the one that did not take no for an answer and said he had to beat him. And I guess WWE said, okay, fine, whatever.
Well,
But a lot of the stuff could have been prevented, and I still think there's a really good match left in him. I do believe that. But to me, it's with Roman. Roman is the money. Roman's a heel. Goldberg's a babyface. That's your WrestleMania match. Why would you put him against Drew, which is fine. I don't have a problem with him going against Drew if that's the end game. But me having a really good idea that you're probably going to go with Goldberg and Roman eventually by the end of the, whatever, maybe at Mania, maybe not, but maybe at Mania, I think that's the most logical match. And I think people will be okay with it. And I think it'll be a good match because Roman has been rock solid. Why would you waste Goldberg? Is he going to lose to Drew? Or is he going to win the championship and we're going to have champion against champion? Which would be stupid, because then you're going to have somebody walking around with both belts and it's going to be impossible to get one of the belts off of them. Why are you booking yourself into these stupid ass corners? Get Goldberg another match against somebody else. Let him get a big win. He can challenge Roman right there. Have the Rumble winner challenge Drew. Whatever. Avoid this. I'm okay with Drew fighting Goldberg if that's the end game. But where are you going after this? Clearly, they have no plan. They clearly threw Goldberg in there because they didn't have no baby faces. No heels to fight against. No baby faces or heels to fight against Drew. Oh, gee, I wonder why. Why don't you have any opponents for Drew? Because you didn't think about it. You didn't have a plan, and you didn't get anyone over. That's the reason why. So now you have to call Goldberg to save the day, and you don't know the end game. You don't know where you're going with this. You don't know how you're going to get out of this. I don't see how this can possibly work out in the end. I just don't see it.
Well, this is one of those times where it's like I don't have much of a defense, meaning I agree. I'm okay with Goldberg coming in and appearing. Should he be wrestling against Drew McIntyre? No. Drew McIntyre has been presented as probably the best booked babyface that WWE has had in quite some time. Meaning that he looks the part, he's booked strongly. Whenever he is positioned to be vulnerable, it's based on good storytelling, and it's not just some put together nonsense when you're showing vulnerability for McIntyre. To have Goldberg come out and if he cuts a promo that said that he's being disrespectful to the legends,
so give me a title shot.
I was just like, you've got to be kidding me, right? That makes no sense. If anybody, again, if anybody, Goldberg should have been laying out Randy Orton, and it would make more sense. Now you're right that the reason why they're booking this match is because, presumably this match is going to be booked for the Royal Rumble coming up at the end of the month, and you're right. WWE has no heels, and forget about baby faces because you don't want to book Drew against another baby face, but you don't have any credible heels because he's already wrestled Randy Orton 35 times. You can't revisit that. You can't revisit it anymore, at least not right now. And WWE has exactly 0 top heels on the Raw side to compete against them, unless they were going to flip Sheamus heel, and it's not enough time to put enough steam on Sheamus to have that kind of match against McIntyre, where for a pay-per-view show, it would feel like it's a big deal. And this is where, yes, does it make sense to have, Goldberg against Roman Reigns down the line? The answer is yes. I don't think that WrestleMania will be that match because honestly, I think that Big E is going to end up winning the Royal Rumble this year and he's going to end up challenging Roman Reigns. If I had to take an early prediction, I would probably say Big E is going to win. So I would have a hard time, you want to use Goldberg, but the question is where? And again, this is where, you can. I don't know how WWE maps out their TV programming, but this kind of seems really odd, and almost looks like, all right, you're inserting Goldberg, all right, that's cool, but this doesn't make sense in the break glass in the case of emergency thing. This doesn't fit because Drew McIntyre is not a heel; he's a babyface in every sense of the word, and he shouldn't be working against Goldberg. If the match is good or not, that's irrelevant. That doesn't really matter in this context. It's more a matter that I don't think. I understand why WWE wants to have this match because Drew McIntyre needs to have staple victories. But with Goldberg, I don't know that this is the right moment to do that. Drew McIntyre still needs to have the big staple win against Brock Lesnar in front of an audience. He can work against the Fiend. He's already worked against Orton 1,000 times. He needs to have his rematch against Roman Reigns down the line and get a win on Roman Reigns. So there are a lot of guys that McIntyre can work with well before Goldberg. So, listen, it is what it is. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm sure WWE will rev up this story in the next couple of weeks going into the Royal Rumble, but there are many other ways to kind of get to a really top main event match with Drew McIntyre, and part of it is again WWE doing a better job of presenting all of their talents so that whenever you insert somebody up there, it's believable.
All right. Let's really quickly. I'm just gonna go over the results from Wrestle Kingdom.
New Japan Pro Wrestling. Tokyo.
Yeah, you had in night 1, you had Hiromu beat El Phantasmo. who I don't really like his name. I feel like he should be under a hood if with a name like that.
Oh, he's not. I thought he was a masked wrestler.
Well, he took it off.
Oh, okay.
But he's awesome though. He's really good in the ring. I saw that match. It was really good. Hiromu won, and then he went on the next night to beat Ishimori in the co-main event, which I think it was the first ever in history that the junior heavyweight championship was defended in the co-main event. So good for them. So then you had for the tag team titles, heavyweight tag team titles, the GOD defeated Dangerous Tekkers.
So what does forgive my ignorance? What does the GOD stand for?
Gorillas of Destiny. That's Tama Tonga and Tangaloa.
Oh, okay. All right, I know
who looked great. Like the way they looked.
I like those are two other guys that, quite frankly, at some point for the fans of U.S. wrestling who haven't seen New Japan, you're in for a treat if ever those guys come to work in the U.S. full time. You're in for a treat. They're really good.
They are really good. They got it figured out. They're in their prime. Yeah, even Tangaloa, who's who was he in WWE? He was what the hell was that gimmick he had? Camacho?
Oh really? Oh yes, he was.
Which is like, what the hell? But he's figured it out. He's with his brother who has
Camacho.
Who has more charisma than him. So together they're both
Haku sons, right?
Yep. So together they're awesome. They should never split up. At least not for like another 5 years. You had Kenta beat Kojima. I guess this probably was gonna be the Moxley and Kenta were probably gonna go against each other, but Kojima is the one who's going against Kenta here.
Now I'm presuming that Moxley couldn't travel. The travel ban for
kids, there's still a travel ban, and even if he could get there, there's probably a quarantine. It will probably take a month to get him to Japan and back, so he'd have to miss 4 weeks of television on AEW. But there was a promo.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes, John Moxley shows up in the.
I'm the boogeyman, and I'll be coming back.
Yes, and of course, like always, Moxley with a great promo.
That is true. I may not be in love with his matches, but his promos are awesome.
His promos, he's a main event promo if I've ever seen one. And he cuts another one here, especially with the boogeyman line, of course. And he's in a New Japan ring. That's the one. They have a ring set up. They were taping. Is it New Japan Strong, which is basically based in America. So he was in the ring. He was in a New Japan ring, cutting a promo on Kenta, and so that's pretty cool. So he said he's going to be back with the title. So that's cool. You had Tanahashi against the Great Okan, which is like this weird character. He was a young boy not too long ago. He's only 29. Then he was sent to the UK, and now he's back under this gimmick, and I don't love it, but
yeah, I don't know who the Great Okan is.
Yeah,
I've never heard of him.
I mean, he's pretty good, but not his time yet. Still a young boy. Tanahashi gets the win. What was that? Okada Ospreay. This is what you would expect from Ospreay. Typical Ospreay match. Probably a little bit better because he's working with Okada, but it went 35 minutes. Okada beats Ospreay, and I forgot the name of Ospreay's new crew, but he does have a new crew, and they all lost. Okan is part of that crew. Will Ospreay's part of that crew, and Jeff Cobb. I forgot the name of their crew, but they're a new crew because Ospreay turned on Okada.
What a loss for AEW not being able to sign Jeff Cobb. He's what a loss for them.
Well, he's good, but he's that dude's gonna be around. But by the time his career is over, he'll work every company. So
yeah,
we'll get to see him.
The one thing I will say for Will Ospreay, and this, he kind of falls in line with Ricochet, even though Ricochet, having been in WWE now for the last couple of years, he's gotten better in this arena. Will Ospreay is just so ridiculously talented in terms of the things he can physically do in the ring. The one thing about it is that it almost seems like that's his gimmick. His gimmick is being able to do all the crazy high flying athletic stuff and telling stories that way. And I think unfortunately what ends up happening with a guy like him is that people get, the fans really get caught up in the oohs and ahs of all the phenomenal physical things he can do. And ultimately it just kind of seems like, with in character work and in promos, things of that nature, it'll never be as strong. And my hope is that at some point that little light goes off in his head and he becomes more judicious about all the high risk stuff he does, and he could do it excellently. Do less of that and do more, character development. And I think that that's when he can truly get over. For real.
Well, as of right now, in Japan, it's not a lot of character stuff. There is, but not a ton.
It's done differently.
Yeah, it's done differently. But for the New Japan style in the ring, Ospreay has slowed down with the high flying. It's not what it used to be. He's a lot closer to, I know you don't like Omega, but he's a lot closer to an Omega's in-ring style than he is Ricochet's in-ring style, if that makes any sense.
Well, and the thing is that I'm not, it's weird. It's not that I'm against the high flyers. It's a matter that for guys like Ricochet and Omega and even Ospreay, because I know that Ospreay's bulked up quite a bit. He used to be really small, but he's
about 235 right now, I believe.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He looks really good physically. Guys of that size, even though you can do the athletic stuff like that, it's got to be kept to a minimum. Again, with Omega, part of the reason why I'm not a big fan of him is because the matches that he works almost seems like something that, I'm not trying to say that the high flying can't be the main event, but it almost seems like with his style, I'm like, with your size and your look, just because you can't do it doesn't mean you always should. And that's why it's always the less is more type of thing. Do it more judiciously. You can preserve your body longer. You can wrestle longer, and and then tell better stories, because when you slow down, things register and they mean more.
You also had, like I said, Jeff Cobb lost to Shingo Takagi. That's a tough name. And Shingo's had killer matches ever since he's come to New Japan. So I think
I'm trying to visualize who Shingo Takagi is, because I think I know who he is. But I can't picture him.
If you see him, you'll know him. He's with Los Ingobernable.
Oh,
he's on that squad. He's kind of the Dragon Mask guy.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's a junior, but I think he was in Dragon Gate for most of his career, and then he just showed up here at 37 years old and was having killer matches. If you like the New Japan style, he was having killer matches. So yeah, he's really good. He looked really good. And against Jeff Cobb, I thought Jeff Cobb was going to win this. This was for the open weight, the never open weight title. So that was pretty good. Sonata defeated Evil, and like I said, Sonata's time is coming. It's getting close, man. That boy is good. I think he's undeniably good. He has enough size. He's almost 6 feet, and you can lie and say he is. He's well above 200 pounds. He's in good shape. He's really good in the ring.
You could say Sonata's 240, and even you could say he's 240, and you wouldn't bat an eye, even though he's probably 225. But you could call him 240, and you'd be just fine.
Yeah. So he has the total package. So his time is coming, and I think it's coming quick. But New Japan has a lot of guys who are getting close to that upper echelon. That you can give a nice little push to if you need to, and they still have their guys like Okada, their established guys. So they have a lot of talent.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hoping, I'm really hoping for New Japan that they can be able to establish some kind of television relationship.
There is rumors that they are in negotiations with Access, of all people. They're now all of a sudden they're back with Access. Not officially, that's just a rumor, but they did say that they're speaking to some outlets to get TV in the US. So I think they will have TV very, very soon, definitely before the end of the year. If not, in a couple of months.
It's gonna be huge for their development, because listen, when I got to see Sonata back in 2017, 2018, and the match, I saw a match he had against Okada, and again, the common thread about all of Okada's opponents is that they always look great and they're always wrestling against Okada, so I get it, but I looked at Sonata and I'm like, this is not a he's good being carried by a great worker. He's a guy that is going toe to toe and he's hanging with him as an equal. And I just looked up at Sonata and I was like, I know it's not his time yet, but boy is he impressive. And that was probably 2 or 3 years ago at this point. So I'm sure that he hasn't gotten any worse. He's only gotten better. So
yeah, he keeps getting better. That dude is. I've been saying it since he was in Impact. He wasn't ready in Impact because he was a little bit smaller. His work.
He needs to get older.
Yeah, exactly. He looked like a little baby. But you knew he had talent. You just knew it. You knew he was good. He was very smooth. And it's funny that they had him working a similar gimmick. What was he doing? What were they calling him over there?
Oh hell, I forget. The one thing
he was working a similar gimmick to Muda, and it's funny because he's
wait a minute, what wasn't Muda like
a mentor type situation?
Yeah, I think that yes. Okay.
So it's funny because when I think of Sonata, his smoothness is very much like Muda's smoothness. Like I can't explain how smooth he is in the ring. Like you can't.
And his size, because Muda,
they're about the same size as well.
A small man.
No,
Muda was about at least 6 feet tall, 6'1", and
yeah, he was in the same. They're almost identical,
40 without breaking a sweat easily.
They're almost identical with size and the way they move in the ring. So yeah, man, good things. I see nothing but good things happening for him. Of course, the main event of night one was Naito with against Kota Ibushi. And
for all the gold,
and of course this was a really, really good match.
It went for 3 hours.
It went for 30 minutes. It could have, it couldn't go much longer because Okada went longer than they did. Okada usually goes close to 40 minutes, so whatever. But Ibushi,
that's not always necessary. Sometimes it'll be like.
It's not always necessary, but it works. It works. I'm okay with long matches. I'm not necessarily okay with long shows, but I'm okay with long matches if the guys are good enough, and I'm lost in the match. I'm lost in the match. They can. I've seen hour-long matches that I was completely invested in. I don't want to be somewhere for 6 hours watching a show. But if you do a 3-hour show. For me, I'm okay with a 3-hour show, even if it's 2 nights and they do 3 hours, or 2:45, whatever. I'm totally okay with that. It's those damn 5-hour shows plus that I can't do. But whatever. I'm usually okay. New Japan, they know what they're doing. The matches are usually really, really good, and they build them up. The thing about Japanese wrestling in 2021, it's been like this for the last 5 years. It reminds me of 97 to 2003 American wrestling, but the best versions. Austin Rock, Austin Bret Hart, that type of the way the matches build, and how they feel epic and they grow and they expand, and you're like, and it gets better. Mm-hmm.
The one thing that New Japan, and I'll give them credit for this because I really enjoy this about New Japan Pro Wrestling, the one thing they do an excellent job of, and there's no other way to say it, they do an excellent job, is that when they know that they're going with a particular match or a particular set of matches, the guys that are featured in those spots are protected like diamonds. Meaning, every time they go out to the ring, they're looking strong. They win way more than they lose. So both guys, you know, if it's a tag match, singles match, title match, grudge match, whatever, those guys are generally kept separated from each other long enough that when they touch in the ring, it feels epic because you've had guys that have been winning, have been strong, and the stake is who's better than who. With the idea that the person that wins advances to the next level of whatever story they're going to, and the guy that loses genuinely goes down the card. It genuinely feels like, oh my God, this guy lost, so now he's got to beat 5 other guys before he could get a rematch. Because there's so many other guys in line that if you get knocked down a peg, you're not falling down one rung, you're falling down multiple rungs. And you're not being buried. It's just a matter that all the guys are protected so well that then you can continue building your story, having to work with the others. So I think that New Japan Pro Wrestling does a really, really good job doing that. And that's what makes the matches feel so epic, because of the fact that all the guys are protected and they're booked so strongly. No one's made to look foolish on their way to the big shows.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, you had Ibushi finally winning the title. It's been kind of hinted at ever since he signed full time with New Japan that this is probably the direction they were going to go in. This guy, I think I was telling you, I didn't think that his body could get any better and that he couldn't get any bigger. He looked huge last night. Oh, God, this guy is so shredded. I mean, not last night, a couple nights ago. This guy is so shredded. Jesus Christ. How does he continue to put on muscle? I have no idea. This is as good a physique as you're going to find in the business right now.
Ibushi looks fantastic.
He's almost the perfect package, in my opinion, for a wrestler. He's lacking some of his charisma. Like, he can. That's the only thing for me. His charisma is not fully there. He hasn't found that part yet.
And all that is, in all honesty, all that is him letting go.
Yeah, and he'll figure it out like a lot of people do when they're put in the spotlight and the pressure's on for you to be the best version of yourself. Most of these people figure it out. So
and Ibushi's a young man still. I can't imagine Ibushi being much older than 30.
Well, actually, I think he is old. I think he is older. He just looks like a baby. Between his little, his no facial hair, and he's in his late 30s. But
really,
he right now he's entering his prime. He's being given the ball. He's gonna be given, the spotlight. So now is when he gets to shine and he gets to get the confidence. Like they obviously trust him, and now he knows that because they put the belt on him. They wouldn't put the belt on him with all that talent they have. They would not put the belt on him if they didn't trust him and think that he can do it. So
absolutely.
Besides the charisma, he's one of the most complete packages in the business, and he showed it going back-to-back nights, over 30 minutes, high-level competition, and looking like the star of both matches, which is hard to do with Naito because he's all charisma.
Well, Naito, the thing here's the thing with Naito. Naito is all charisma. He really is, and he's a really good wrestler. I think the one thing is with Naito is that I look at Naito and I think that he's so good, but there's always, and maybe it's just a matter that I do have, it might be a matter of having a little bit of an American wrestling bias and not understanding Japanese wrestling the same way, and then looking at it through that lens. But there's something about Naito that I'm like, he's a guy that I can easily always see in the main event, but I don't see him as the tippity top guy. I just don't.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ibushi, I kind of view Ibushi the same way, but it's for a different reason. And you already pointed out is that it's that charisma. It almost seems like, physically he looks amazing. You can't look much better than what Ibushi looks physically. His in-ring work is superb. Notwithstanding, some of the goofy shit that he's done in his younger days. Who cares? Let's forgive it. He was a kid. Let it go. But the work that he does in the ring today is just, it's high class work. I always nitpick and say that I hate his haircut, but whatever. That's that's one thing I would change about him. And it's all a matter that I think and it's not a matter because sometimes people say hey, charisma's between the ears. That has nothing to do with that. That's right here. It's right here. It's finding the soul. If he's able to find that within him and be able to translate that, because again, for New Japan Pro Wrestling, for them, and this is what I hope that New Japan, and I'm sure they understand this from a business perspective, because to the Japanese audience, they can cut all their promos in Japanese. They could be able to do that, and maybe the Japanese understand charisma differently than we do here in the United States. So maybe for the Japanese fans, they think of Kota Ibushi's like, yeah, Ibushi's, he's Dusty Rhodes, or for God rest his soul, for and in terms of that, I don't believe that, but let's just say that the Japanese fans, it translates that way to them. With Ibushi, he's a guy that it's almost like I want to say, do I see him as like tippity top? No. But what I'd like to see from is a matter of it's not that they necessarily need to learn how to speak English to be able to cut English promos for the American audience if and when the show comes back. But sometimes when they cut their promos in Japanese, even with the English subtitles, something is always lost in translation. And that's just me not understanding Japanese. That's my problem. I have to learn to live with that. But that's one of the things with like Omega and mostly Chris Jericho when he was wrestling in Japan, his last run, a couple of years back, where he was so good because of the fact that he understood the Japanese style and what works for the Japanese audience, but he didn't need to speak Japanese. He spoke enough Japanese to be able to say, either cuss words or things he can get away with in Japanese to make him a heel. But when he cut his promos, he cut them in English. So it translates to an international audience that can see Chris Jericho and know that Chris Jericho is a big deal. And the work that he was doing in Japan was very, very good. And, that translated to a much larger audience versus with a guy like Okada, who I think has a ton of charisma and he's got a fantastic look. And when he cuts his promos, even though I don't speak Japanese, I can sense that he's pulling me in, it gets to the moments where I don't even listen. I don't even try to read the English subtitles. I'm like, I don't understand a word you're saying, but you're drawing me in and I'm paying attention to your eyes and how the audience is receiving what you're giving them, when you're speaking. With Naito, it's kind of like he can do the same thing in his promos. It's just a matter that there's a part of his presentation that seems a little goofier to me. And although he's a very talented wrestler in the ring, is always going to be a part of his presentation that doesn't necessarily translate to me as a top guy. And when I look at a guy like Ibushi being the top guy, it kind of gives me the impression that it gives a little more room for other guys not named Okada to end up becoming the IWGP champion, going down the line, with, either Sonata or, I don't know if Kenta would ever, get that sort of opportunity because I don't know how he's viewed in Japan or how he's been presented, because I know that he had a really bad run here in the United States in the WWE. So I don't know how that's translating now in Japan, but those kinds of things are always, questions to have, because I know Okada was so dominant that it almost seemed like nobody should beat him. I don't feel the same way about Ibushi, but let's see how New Japan presents him moving forward.
Yeah, so like I said, he looked great in both matches. He, at the end of his match with Naito presented him the titles. You seen Ibushi look very emotional, so that was a nice little connection with the crowd there. They felt his emotion.
Great picture. Great picture with Ibushi holding both titles.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And then he goes on to face Jay White. They went almost an hour. They went 48 minutes. But again, Ibushi looked like a star. He wins. The company is gonna go with him for now. So sky's the limit right now. So let's see if he continues to grow, just like when Okada first got the title. I forget what year, but maybe 5 years ago or a little bit more.
I think 2015. 2015. Yeah.
Right. He still didn't have everything. He grew into that big star that he is now.
Yeah, he did.
Yes. And he continued to get better after he won the title. So it looks like in Japan, they give you the belt almost like before you peak. Where in America, you see guys get the title at their peak. When it's done right, you get it at your peak. And then you kind of got to stay hot.
Well,
Well,
maybe for the Japanese audience, the IWGP title, it's almost like, here where we say sometimes the person makes the title or the title makes the person. I think that probably in New Japan, it might be a matter that the title makes the person. The title is held in such high regard, the way that it's booked and protected, that when you win the title, even if you're not quote unquote of a complete package, a finished product, the title puts so much luster on you that it raises you up to that level.
But I think it's also that Japan, starting from the Young Boy program, it's like they know where these guys are going. They kind of have a pretty good idea of where they can get, and they're not afraid to book towards that direction. And when they say we're going to pull the trigger on this guy, whether it works or not, we'll find out. But usually when they make a decision, they're usually right. They take a chance on a person, and that person lives up to that expectation and grows perfect timing, and it's timed pretty nicely in New Japan. So they do a really good job with that. So Ibushi, I'm not shocked that they put the title on him by any means. We just know that he's lacking some charisma, and we know that he has an opportunity now to go find it. So we'll see. We'll see about that.
I guess my question moving forward would be is because I felt that Jay White would end up winning the titles only because with the television that I saw in New Japan, it kind of gave me the impression that Jay White and of course I didn't know that Jay White was already the IWGP champion. I thought that he had like the junior title or the Intercontinental title or US title. I didn't realize he was the IWGP champion at one time already. So my question would be is whether or not is it time for Jay White to make the jump and come to the United States?
If someone's willing to buy out his contract, because the last time he signed the deal, and I think he might only be a year in, maybe two, because 2020 flew by, and it was a year where our minds weren't here completely. Mm-hmm. So maybe he's done with 2 years. He signed a 7-year contract. So unless someone's gonna buy out his contract, I don't see how he's going anywhere. I know he said he's done with New Japan, but I think he said it in character. Yeah. I think it's all part of the show. I don't see him going anywhere. Unless, like I said, unless Vince McMahon says, I want that guy and I'll give you $1 million for him. Unless it's something like that.
Or Tony Khan if he makes that phone call.
Or Tony Khan, if that, whatever works. If someone's willing to pay New Japan and New Japan goes, okay, we don't need him, but they obviously see, you don't sign someone for 7 years and you don't put the title on them in Japan. If you don't think that they're going to be with you for, a long time, I don't see them letting him go. And I don't think he wants to go. I think he likes it. They treat him really well. He's gotten a lot of opportunities. And I didn't think he was that good when he was champion. I didn't think his matches lived up to the Tanahashis and Okadas and Naito. Even guys who are not in the main event, like Ishii, like these guys, he's
really, Ishii. Yeah, I like Ishii.
he has killer matches. So yeah, Jay White is just now starting to have these really good matches. When he was champion and leading up to that, it was more because Bullet Club is hot and he's the leader who they decided to make the leader. So he was getting those main event opportunities.
He was the featured guy in the group.
His matches did not match his position in the company, but it does now. His matches are good enough now. His physique is good enough. His character is good enough. His mic work is good enough. He's gotten really, really, really good. So I don't see him.
His promos are really good. His promos are really good.
No, he's good. He's solid all around. He's figured it out. So something about that system over there in New Japan where guys, when it's time for you to get good, they just get good. Like, they figure it out. So, good for them, good for that company, and hopefully they keep doing cool things, and hopefully they get a show over here, so we can keep up a little easier because it's hard enough. But
and their product is very good. It's just a matter that they need a television outlet here in the United States.
Yeah, they need TV here, and they did say that they're gonna get it. So be on the lookout. All right, last thing of the night. We have to talk about, because we haven't had a chat. We haven't united the bros for a couple of weeks.
We have not.
So we did not get to talk about Brodie Lee, John Huber, since he passed away, which was on the 26th of December.
Correct.
And I guess what I realized real quick is that this guy was completely beloved by everyone, because he's been around the block. He worked all the indies for a long time. Then he worked WWE for a long time. And now he worked AEW for less than a year, and everyone fell in love with this man. So I guess he was a great dude. I've never seen such an outpouring for anyone. Obviously, social media was not around when Eddie passed away, but it feels very similar to that kind of love. Like so many people from so many different places, and you can tell by the way everyone is just desperate to help his family right now. They're like, I'm gonna donate everything, every shirt I sell this month, that's going to their family. You got this coming from every direction, every company. You have people working with Brodie Jr. on his wrestling. They're already getting him ready because AEW has already signed him to a contract, and as soon as he's 18 years old, if AEW is around, hopefully, he's going right to work. And that's how much love everyone has for Brodie Lee. I mean, obviously, I wish we would have got to see him reach the tippity top in AEW, but I'm so happy that he did come to AEW and got. It was a short run, but it was a main event run. He main evented, Dynamites. He had big pay-per-view matches. It wasn't a lot. He didn't have a lot of matches, but it was main event. He got a chance to have angles and cut promos and have some character and take his career into his own hands and have the spotlight, finally, when, I imagine that's what he always wanted, is the opportunity, in a major storyline, and thank God it happened before he left us, which was obviously way too soon.
Yeah, it's one of those things where whenever I think of Brodie Lee, it's like the one match that always comes. I mean, I actually ended up watching it one night. It was where he as Luke Harper with Eric Rowan and Bray Wyatt when they wrestled against the Shield in that 6-man, which was even before they touched the crowd, they're like, "This is awesome," and it was weird because obviously I can't go back to 2014 when that match took place to really kind of understand it. But I remember seeing it live when it aired back in 2014, how I was sucked into it. And even watching it back now, it's like, my God, this holds up. Like this was fantastic.
Did you not feel like a little kid
Watching the match,
originally? I felt like a little kid watching that match.
Yes. The thing is, when when I saw Brodie Lee in AEW, I was, and still, I mean, I was very critical of him being the leader of the Dark Order, because I felt that for Brodie Lee, if he just came from WWE TV at the time and was going to make a debut in AEW, you'd probably, and knowing at the time how few big men wrestlers they had on their roster, it would have been very easy to have Brodie Lee smash over a lot of different people on the road to, at the time, an AEW title shot, because that was the only singles title that was around at the time. This was before the TNT title was was in the mix. And if for a guy who passed away at 41 years of age, it hits me hard personally, because he and I are roughly about the same age, young families, and you look up and you're like, damn, it seemed like this guy was, everybody loved him. And they all kind of said the same thing universally. Wrestling, he looked at wrestling as a job. His family came first. And that you can't ask for anything more of a person. Because in professional wrestling, a lot of people obsess over it, and that's their life, and to the detriment of the other areas of their lives. Spouses, children, everything else kind of secondary to wrestling. So to have a guy like that who was, was beloved by all, and it seemed like everybody was, regardless, this is very universal across the board. No one had a bad thing to say. And it almost like when you see it, you're like, man, like this, it really stings. The AEW tribute show was a very, very touching and very nicely done show. And again, it's like, I don't necessarily, want to look at, or, say, hey, look past, the life of John Huber, but then I start looking around and I'm like, where does this leave the Dark Order? Meaning the members of the Dark Order, I don't see the Dark Order existing anymore. At some point, little by little, you start fizzling that out, but it leaves a very lasting impression, because it really appears like Brodie Lee was in AEW with the intention of giving a helping hand. And apparently every single person in that locker room has stories of how he was able to help them. And mind you, he was there for a year at the most. And I think I'm exaggerating when I say a year. I don't think it was that long. So it creates a situation where you wish, for people like that, those are the kind of people that you want to live longer. Those are the kinds of people that you want to have around. And it's unfortunate that he left us, so soon. When you're talking about, you have a wife, you have an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old, that's a heavy hand. The wrestling business has done a fantastic job, and the community has come together in terms of giving them a lot of love and a lot of support. It's not just the AEW folks, the WWE folks as well. I know that there was a time when wrestlers and fans online were criticizing WWE for not paying tribute to Luke Harper on Monday Night Raw, on the telecast after he passed. And I was like, no, that's a very classy move by WWE. They did the right thing. They're basically giving AEW the floor. Let them go first. Then after the AEW show went off, then WWE did their tributes, and they did it quietly. They did it online. It was not something that they were going to put on their shows, because he wasn't working for them. And they allowed the wrestlers to speak their hearts. They put it online. It's you know, it's around for everybody. So it was a classy move by all the players involved. And you know, the hope is, you know, that for us as fans, you know, that sometimes we want to pick sides and say, oh, I'm a WWE guy or an AEW guy. It's like, relax. We're all wrestling. You know, we're all wrestling fans for a reason. You know, we love this for a reason. And, you know, again, you know, this is the very human side. And this is the thing that sucks, because it almost seems like every video we do, we're talking about, you know, wrestlers dying.
24 wrestlers died in 2020.
Well,
which has to be a record probably since the 80s.
Well, listen, it's heartbreaking, but this one hurts particularly more because he was such a young man. And apparently he had this condition. He must have had this condition for some time, not knowing it. You know, so that's something remarkable when you look at it and you see that he's in the ring and he's doing all the things he's doing, and he's not a small man. He was a big man. So to be able to do the things that he did in the ring, presuming if he had some kind of lung condition that he didn't know about, and then unfortunately when it hit him really hard and he couldn't kick out. It sucks, you know, and my heart breaks for his family, because, you know, you can genuinely tell that, you know, his wife loved him, his kids loved him, and it's heartbreaking to see that. And, you know, to the wrestling community, man, thank you. To the AEW folks, to the WWE folks, thank you guys for, you know, for the things that you've done publicly and the things you're doing privately. Because, you know, we only get to see what you show us. But, you know, thank you in advance for taking care of, you know, the Huber family, because, you know, that's what we should be doing. You know, look after each other and, you know, keep the community strong. So thank y'all. Thank y'all very much.
Like and subscribe, everyone.